So we're back tonight. So I want to. So I'm gonna read an article from the Washington Post that popped up today. I have feelings about it. I also want to just be very clear here. My politics don't change whether immigrants are black or white or Mexican or anything else. I think when we're talking about black people who have actually most black people who have immigrated to America at least. The largest population, I think, are Nigerians, and they are actually just being hired at companies because the only way they can actually get over here is being highly educated. So those are just the stats, but it looks like this is an article by the Washington Post. It's dated today, so today's April 2nd. There are new migrants on the U.S. Mexico border, Ukrainian refugees. A handwritten list offers a glimpse into those who've decided to leave Europe, hoping for new lives or temporary respite in North America. Ukrainian refugees rest at an encampment camp near the San Isidro border crossing in Tijuana, Mexico on April 1st, 2022. Luis Antonio Rojas for the Washington Post. There they are, the Ukrainian refugees on the Mexican border. In Tijuana, Mexico, the list of Ukrainian refugees waiting to enter the United States is kept on a yellow legal pad on a folding table inside a blue camping tent, a few feet away from the multi-lane highway that connects Mexico to the United States. It is written in English and Cyrillic by volunteers, many refugees themselves waiting for their own numbers to be called. They said it could be 2 or 3 days, said Valentina Shyman-Servaska, number 884, a sunflower farmer from outside Kharkiv. My turn is any minute, said Sviatoslav Roski, number 319, a university student from Lviv. I can't believe we are still waiting, said Maxim Polasov, number 363, who renovated homes in Slavyansk. People gather outside the tent where volunteers manage the list of Ukrainian refugees waiting to enter the United States. By Saturday morning, the list had more than 1,200 names on it. Dozens more Ukrainians are arriving every hour. A van was shuttling them between the Tijuana airport and the tent where the yellow legal pad was kept. The list, people began calling it in Tijuana, which requires no elaboration. The United States last month committed to accepting as many as 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, but it has yet to establish a way for them to arrive directly. There are no resettlement programs or visa pipelines. That has left Ukrainians in growing numbers to book flights to Mexico. They arrive at the U.S. border on foot, many pushing kids in strollers and dragging suitcases. This is incredible. Dragging suitcases behind them. On social media platforms and messaging apps, groups with thousands of members now explain the process in the Ukrainian language. From major European cities, fly to enter Cancun or Mexico City. Ukrainians don't need visas to enter the country. From there, take another flight to Tijuana. A small encampment has sprouted about 1,000 feet from the U.S. border where families are sleeping in tents and under tarps. It's the same tiny patch that has hosted refugees from around the world in recent years. Central Americans who were part of the caravans in 2018, Haitians and Cubans who arrived during the pandemic, Mexicans who fled the surge in violence this year. But few refugees have arrived in Tijuana after such circuitous trajectory of trains, buses, and flights, and few are processed as quickly by U.S. authorities. That's a good point. Upon arriving at the border, Ukrainians are granted humanitarian parole for 1 year. Incredible! Tatiana Palapchuk, 25, Elizabeth Babichuk, 22, and Maria Berkovska, 27, wait in Tijuana on April 1st. Look, everybody looks so happy in the refugee camp. They are chilling out. Oh, America loves refugees. Maria Verkovska and her 2 friends traveled through 9 countries in 10 days after leaving Ukraine in late February. They ended up in Finland, where Verkovska joined a Telegram channel called Ukraine Mexico. They borrowed $1,300 each for flights to Tijuana via Brussels and Cancun. Most of their families had remained behind in northeastern Ukraine. I cannot read. Their brothers and fathers were forced to join the country's fighting force. Their mothers and sisters mostly chose not to leave. Some of them in towns occupied by Russia had no choice. We wanted to get as far away from Ukraine as we could, and the United States is as far as we could think, Berkovska said. Others ended up in Tijuana because their relatives were U.S. citizens or residents who had been calling for them to come since the war began in February. There are about 1 million Americans of Ukrainian descent living in the United States. How wonderful is that? Number 658 on the list was a 10-year-old boy named Yasher. And number 659 was a 14-year-old girl named Tasia. Their Aunt Tanya Malko, who traveled from her home in Tampa to pick them up in Ukraine after the children's mother decided to stay behind in the city of Chernihiv. Are they going to let us stay together after the children crossed the border? Malko asked. She heard of stories of U.S. immigration officials separating children from relatives who the officials claimed are not legal guardians. That's a good point. They definitely did that to Latinos. They definitely took all the children from the Mexican families, but not the Ukrainian children. What a turn of events! The United States now has an open policy for refugees. All Ukrainians are welcome in the United States under President Joe Biden. Just want to reiterate the facts. Number 689 was Maria Poplenko, 19, from Hostomel, whose sister had driven from West Virginia to Tijuana to meet her. Poplenko had started a job in her city's McDonald's just before the war began. The sisters embraced in front of Farmacia La Linea, the lights of one of the world's busiest border crossings flashing behind them. Number 612 was Gleb Prochlikin, 15, the number 3 ranked junior tennis player in Kharkiv, whose English was good enough to translate from some foreigners who volunteered and descended on Tijuana with blankets and protein bars and tacos. Wow, they turned this refugee camp into a party. Party in Tijuana for Ukrainians. Hey! Number 673 was Luda Hodovskaya from Lachkajga, who ate the first taco of her life. Look at her, girl, you better eat them tacos. Hell yeah. In Tijuana, and exclaimed after her first bite, "Oh my God, this is super." Tijuana was often indifferent to the iterations of migrants and refugees who arrived here, but the support for Ukrainians was immediate. "We will work together so you can achieve your dream," said the city's mayor, Montserrat Caballero, as she visited the encampment on Thursday. Welcome to Tijuana. On Friday evening, one woman serenaded the refugees while strumming an acoustic guitar. An inebriated American man handed hundreds of dollars in cash to a Ukrainian American volunteer, cursing out Russian President Vladimir Putin as he distributed the money. I love Ukrainians, he slurred. Number 319 was 21-year-old Shlabalaba Rusky from Liv, whose grandparents lived in Sacramento and were waiting for him on the other side of the border crossing. Like many of the Ukrainians in Tijuana, Ursky had visited the U.S. embassies and consulates in European capitals after leaving Ukraine, inquiring about a path to refugee status in the United States. They told us, sorry, we don't have any options for you yet, Uruski recounted an embassy official in Poland, saying. So, he and his family, after reading the guidance on a Telegram channel, booked flights to Mexico. At 1 p.m. on Friday afternoon, his number was called. We've got space for one more family, a U.S. immigration officer said on the other side of the barbed wire, next to where Yursky was sitting in a floating chair. Standing up, he grinned. I'm sure he did. The first day as a Ukrainian refugee, a warm bed, guilt, and cursing Putin. We've got another article. One of the volunteers who managed the list was Anna Zinchenko, a Ukrainian American nurse who drove to Tijuana from Spokane, Washington. She tried to decide which families to prioritize, who should rise to the top of the list because of a medical condition or because their children got colds and the temperature dropped at night. It was too much pressure, Zinchenko said. I'm a soft person. Keeping control of the list was too much for me. At the Tijuana border crossing, U.S. officials have given orders that only Ukrainians can be put on the list, a policy known as Title 42. Due to be lifted in May, has prevented asylum seekers from crossing the border to make their claims since the beginning of the pandemic. It has been used in about 1.7 million migrant expulsions over the last 2 years. Wow. So 1.2 million people were turned away from the U.S. seeking asylum because of a policy known as Title 42. But all of a sudden, all those policies are lifted now, and 100,000 Ukrainian immigrants immediately are able to cross the border and get tents and tacos. So go Ukraine! On Friday, a family of Honduran asylum seekers turned away at the border, passed by a Ukrainian encampment to ask for small change. Wow. U.S. officials have carved out an exemption to Title 42 for Ukrainians, but many Russians are fleeing simultaneously, including some with Ukrainian relatives. Number 949 was a Ukrainian woman whose 18-year-old son had a Russian passport. Will they let us across? She asked the volunteer, but no one can answer. This is so sad. So there's a picture. This woman's name is Valentia Sharameskova. She rests at the encampment near the border crossing on April 1st. Valentia Sharamashkova, number 884, owns a farm near Kharkiv. She looked up at the trees growing along the highway next to the encampment. Yuka, she said. Her 2-year-old grandson, Daniel, was playing next to her. He and Shamershnaba, daughter Alina, had narrowly escaped the town of Shkenshko in eastern Ukraine, which had been heavily shelled and mined by Russian forces. Daniel now gasped at loud noises. They had left Ukraine only 7 days ago. Every Ukrainian in Tijuana had a different idea of how long they would stay in the United States. Some said they were planning to migrate permanently. I feel like that'd be the fucking dream, bro. Like, nobody wants to live in Ukraine. No! It's not even a place that people want to visit. I don't know. Is this a joke? Wow. Okay. So others said they would leave after the 1 year humanitarian parole expired. Cher Mashnava had her own plan. 2 weeks ago, she said, "That's how long I'm planning to stay. The first day they tell me the war is over, we will go back." Well, I mean, that's smart. Her family's there. Her daughter and her newborn grandson had driven from Marysville, Washington to greet her on the other side of the border. "That's all I'm thinking about now," she said, holding both of my grandchildren each in one arm. So, I'm sorry, like, I feel some kind of way. I feel some kind of way. First of all, if we didn't get that clear, 1.7 million refugees have been turned away from entering America due to Title 42. That is like a law that says America basically can't take any refugees. All of a sudden, all that shit is lifted, and now 100,000 Ukrainian refugees can just come. So, the math isn't mathing to me. I don't understand. What's happening in Ukraine is not worse than what's happening in Yemen. What's happening in Ukraine is not worse than what's happening in Ethiopia. Like, there's wars happening every fucking day. Like, I don't understand. If people are going to be tough on immigration, be tough on immigration. Like, you can't just be tough on immigration when it's like black immigrants or Latino immigrants. Matt, did you hear the story? There's a Honduras woman who was trying to get refuge in America, and at the Tijuana border, she walked past the fucking Ukrainian tent with tacos and was turned away. Something is wrong with this society. Like, the hypocrisy cannot continue. Like, dude, does everyone think we are fucking idiots? Like, I'm so confused. Like, if you don't see the problem here, something is wrong with you. Like, you don't get me wrong. I am not a person who is saying pro-war, fuck Ukrainians. I'm not saying that. But I don't understand when Schligamaka from fucking Ucriv gets a ticket and a taco to come to America to be like, "I might decide to stay." Yeah, bitch, I'm sure you would like to stay. Seriously? Like, what the fuck is she had a job at McDonald's and all of a sudden she's like, it's just a lot. Like, I don't. Are we joking? Like, you gotta be fucking joking. Like, the hypocrisy is just way too real in this country, and you can't sit here and call me a bigot or something, or be like, "Oh, she's anti-white." No, like, I'm anti-stupid, and get the fuck out of here, because this is like the craziest thing I've ever. Like, if people want to stop, like, what you should do is go save all the people in Ukraine. Like, if America really wants to take a stance and have war with Russia, that's some real shit that Biden can sign up for, and he can go do that. But, like, what you can't do is basically, like, put Ukrainians above everyone else in the list who has fucking issues and is a refugee. Refugee crises are fucking real. Okay? Like, and climate migrants are even more real. We're going to have more of those. So what? Every time something bad happens in Europe, now the white people get shoved to the front of the list of migrants, and even the people in Honduras. Like, the shit that's going on in Latin America, that's a fucking humanitarian crisis. People are fleeing Tijuana. Like, Mexico is not, like, Latin America is in a really fucking rough place right now, okay? People are fleeing there for real violence. And, like, I think people are taking some of the shit that I've said in the past in the wrong way. Like, what the point that I've been trying to make about the Latino community is that some of y'all are just anti-black. That's how you are, as if black people have done something to you. We have not, okay? Especially being an African black person who wants to believe in Africa. Like, everything that I believe and care about in Africa has nothing to do with Latinos at all. The problem that I have is, like, every single time that I meet a new Latino person, or like, you know, I come across some initiative that happens, or I literally traveled to Latin America to see the shit for myself. And it was just like the whole system is set up to be anti-black. The black people in Latin America don't have any opportunity for growth at all. It's anti-black. And then I just know Latino people who are just awful. So like, this is the problem that I have. But don't get me wrong, because violence is violence. And I can see real violence happening in Latin America, and I feel bad. Because I am not in support of murder, which is like what's happening, right? Like, the shit that's going on in Latin America is not funny. Lots of people are dying. They're like killing their children, their daughters. It's real bad. It's not like all of Latin America, but like Venezuela, it's an awful place. Hyperinflation has caused them to, I think, is it cryptocurrency like the main current? They don't even have a dollar anymore. They just have like cryptocurrency or something. It's rough, okay? And like I feel for the roughness, but like we have shit going on in America too, okay? Like, if y'all have not seen my post on the soft white underbelly and all the shit that's happening in like really every county, fucking San Francisco and the Tenderloin, we have like a serious it's not, what is it, like a fentanyl addiction, where right? People are like, hella people are homeless, hella people are addicted to fentanyl, and like there's no houses for these people. All there are is tents. So I'm confused. Like, where are we going to house 100,000 Ukrainians? Like, we can't house 100 people in Oakland right now. All the people from the homeless everywhere are coming to fucking California and New York. At least in New York, they have a mandatory bed policy where every homeless person every night in New York is required to have a bed. But it's not like that in any other fucking state. Okay, like, if you're fucking homeless in any other state, you're just on the street. There are no beds in San Francisco. If you're homeless in California, you're just fucking homeless. Where are these 100,000 Ukrainians gonna go? We can't even figure out healthcare, education, roads, water, nothing. Like, we can't help Americans. How the fuck can we help Ukrainians? You know what we should do? We should send them a fucking song. Everybody likes like songs and movies and all this shit. I'm telling you, Disney needs to make a Ukrainian princess that survives a bomb shelter. And it's not funny, but maybe it would like help people like deal with the real tragedy that's happening right now that those kids are growing up under. Remember when you gave Tiana the frog? Because that's what you saw in black people. All black people had is a frog. And the idea behind her getting the frog was like, maybe some black girls will be able to thrive knowing that they can fall in love with a frog. Well, these Ukrainian children need the same amount of help. They need to understand how to survive a bomb shelter, how to survive real war. Maybe a Disney movie would help. I mean, like, what? I don't understand why we're all like, we know what to do. This country has done it before, right? Don't you send well wishes and you pretend to care in the UN meetings? Like, what? Why is it different now? Like, 1.7 million refugees were turned away last year. Clearly, there's a reason. Where are all the conservatives now who are up? Where's Ann Coulter now? Like, isn't she tough on immigration? Bitch, stand up. Like, if y'all don't like immigration, all right. Like, well, why aren't y'all opposing these 100,000 Ukrainians? It can't go fucking both ways. Either you're sitting here saying that you fucking hate black people and you don't want black people to be citizens, which is why you do not promote refugees coming from Africa or Yemen or really anywhere that is not white, right? But as soon as Europeans are now the refugees, yo, literally, that's so fucked up. Imagine being that woman, that Honduran refugee who walks past a taco camp with those like 17-year-old chicks who were working at McDonald's, like sitting in fucking like armchairs eating tacos, being like, yeah, we're going to America, bye bitch. And she just like that's so fucked up. That's fucked up. I'm sorry, but like you cannot have it both ways. That's crazy.